Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 20th, 24 council meeting. Anyone in attendance needs amplifying anything, please raise your hand and you'll bring something to you. Not seeing any. Let's rise for a pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Donna, will you do the roll call, please?
I will. Councilmember Blush.
Here.
Councilmember Sherman. Here. Councilmember Gutierrez.
Here.
Mayor Nesco.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Schmidt.
Here.
Councilmember Stearns. And Councilmember Gilmore.
Here.
Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Council have any late changes to the agenda? City manager.
Nothing tonight, Mr.
All
Mayor.
right. Council have any board reports to share? All right. Does everyone review the item of the consent agenda? Need a motion, please.
Move to approve the consent agenda as published.
All right, we have a motion to second to approve the consent agenda as published. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The first presentation tonight is the swearing in of a new police officer.
Yeah. You're giving them a second to stand up, recognize.
I have no bear on the officer. I start by raising my hand. And I state your name.
I am Gordon Houston,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United
and
States
the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and to abide by the code of ethics of the Shelton Police Department,
and to abide by the code of ethics of the Shelton Police Department,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of police officer of the city of Shelton.
discharge the duties of police officer for the city of Shelton.
There's a pen over there, Mr. Mayor. There's a pen over there.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if I may address the council and
Absolutely.
okay, just real quickly about, our officer, Houston, he came to us back approximately last May. He came as an entry-level, candidate. It took a couple months just to get him through that process and get him on. I believe we hired you on in, is about July of last year. He was in a substantial holding pattern until we got him in academy. He started in, October. And finally, we're here to February and he's graduated. I just wanted to illustrate the time that it takes to onboard a brand new police officer. We're, 8 months into the mission year or so, and he still has 2 to 3 months of field training officer training to get him up to speed and ready to serve the city of Shelton as a single unit. So I just wanted to illustrate that because I think it's important to understand how long these hires take to get on board and really be able to serve the city. Thank you.
Great. It's close to 2 years, correct?
Well, about a year.
About a year.
About a year, maybe he's sitting at now, once he's off FTN, it'll be about a year. That big, process.
We're happy to have you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Our next presentation is a report from Mrs. Arbrough for the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee.
Hello. We had a great fourth quarter. Next slide, please. So we had a total visitor count for the fourth quarter of 1,300 people. With 930 in October, but a good portion of those were on Halloween, which is a very popular event. But December was great for us when you consider also that at the holidays and we were closed part of the time. A big impact on our attendance this year. We had a couple of great articles in the Mason County Journal front page. One of them was even above the fold. So it just reminds everyone that we're there. Next slide, please. We have a fairly active social media and website traffic. We still are right around 3,500 followers. Our website, we had about 1,000 visitors and unique visits, and then 2,000. What is that? 2,000 page views. Yes, there we go. Next slide, please. We did receive a COVID Impact Recovery Grant from ArtsWA, which is funded by the Washington State Legislature, the Department of Commerce, for Washington State Department of Commerce. And then there's, I think, the arts organization that's attached to that. We just got the check today, so that was nice. And that will just be used for general budget. Next slide, please. We have a great exhibit currently going, the photography of Dennis Muir. If you have not been in to see it yet, I invite you to do that. We had a hard time picking 24 photos out of, probably a couple thousand negatives. And so we will probably be doing this again in a couple of years, just because he has some great photographs. Next slide. So that is pretty much it. Are there any questions?
Anyone have any questions? Thank you very much. All right, our last presentation is from Finance Director Mike Gibbons. He goes, whoa, me?
Good evening, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and members of council. Tonight, as promised, is the December financial report. So this represents our fiscal year, and we wanted to spend just a little bit more time on it. I'll let the city manager join in at parts of this, not to surprise him totally, but it does, I think, bear some time to look at this, simply because it's a culmination of a year that we spent a lot of time on budget, particularly in the general fund, but serves as a good review as we're starting out fiscal year 2024 and heading into another budget development time. So let me bring up some parts of the report for everyone to see. And start with page 1. So in 2023, one of the things I wanted to point out here, because it can be a little bit confusing, on the third line down, so we're talking about the general fund, we had revenues and expenditures. The revenue was slightly over where we projected. You want the variance there that I'm looking at, if we see it in a positive number, that's favorable. Expenditures were under. The real difference line, I think, that I would ask you to focus on is that $800,000. So that really is what I would say represents the hard work, the real savings that we saw in 2023 from the mid-year adjustment to staff really monitoring the expenditures in the general fund. Of course, as I'll go through in a little bit more detail, some revenue that was a little bit higher in some places. Sometimes the reason I'm focusing on this a little bit more is because sometimes we can get caught
a little bit maybe saying, well, but isn't it really that unreserved fund balance? And that's partly true, but I want to remind council that when the 2023 budget was originally passed, we were relying on that fund balance to potentially fund some things like jail services that we ended up not needing to dip into that. Some ongoing costs were budgeted out of that we corrected. So as you are aware, there's a council policy that dictates how much of a reservation of the fund we have. For the general fund, it's 20%. We outlined that on this page. So the reservation of 20% is the $3.1 million approximately, and then the unreserved portion is the $2.6 million. So I think that part of the message here is that we're not sitting on some kind of boon or windfall to the city's general fund. That 20% is for emergency types of needs that might arise to the city. That's why the council adopted that reservation policy. That part that's not reserved, if you will, just to I guess review with you as council what we can use that for. The fund balance levels in excess of the reserve, and this is from the policy required, and that's the 20% of the current year budgeted expenses. That's where the 20% comes from. The reserve, if you will, are considered to supplement pay-as-you-go capital outlay and other one-time expenditures for any good governmental purpose. So one of the things that Mark and I've talked about that he presented to leadership is really to start consideration of capital and other one-time expenditures that we can present to you and in some more detail in either a supplemental budget or as we work towards preparing the 2025 budget. But I think it's important that we remember it's really thought of that excess over the reserve as one-time kinds of things.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. I want to reiterate, this savings, if you will, or this unreserved fund balance is on the backs of 6 FTEs in the city of Shelton from 2023 that were budgeted. Although these funds are intended to be used for strategic purposes, we don't necessarily have the staff to perform those strategic exercises here at the city at this point. So we even need to be more thoughtful on how we dedicate those funds to future expenses. We have a minimal capital reserve at the city of Shelton. I'd like to address that more appropriately now. If you're talking about replacing a roof on this structure or the fire station or HVAC unit replacements, those can be quite expensive. And if we don't plan on those ahead of time, we'll be dipping into that reserve balance, that 20% reserve, and then trying to pay that back even next year over time and further diminishing the available funds we have. So as Mike mentioned, we want to be as strategic as possible. Part of that will start with the council retreat on March 25th that I sent out a meeting invite for, and then we can reaffirm council strategic goals with you at that time, come back with our leadership team and develop some priority projects from that guidance, and then work through the implementation of the 2025 budget. So that's our plan at this point. We certainly can answer any questions tonight or discuss that a little more at a future retreat. And
Any questions now? Yeah, sure.
So what happens when we can't meet for how to spend the money? What's
Stays there
Stay there.
in the general fund. I mean, we have it invested in short-term and our fund.
It sits in the general fund. Interest.
correct. Might be a little glib, but if we can't decide how we spend those funds, it'll be decided for us. Yeah, by not proactively and strategically planning, right? It's kind of like home. If we don't plan on the replacement of the washing machine, eventually that washing machine will tell us when it needs to be replaced.
I think we all wish that, the story is a better one than we had predicted, but you've identified a lot of different kinds of costs that are out there for the general fund. Different changes to our revenue structure that are coming up in the next couple of years that, you know, we also want to be mindful of. So while I think we're in a good position as we ended 2023 and as we head into 2024, I guess for the positive, our work's still before us. But this is a better place than we thought we would. Well, let me just say, then I thought we would be, say, a year ago at this point. So that it's, you know, we're on solid footing, but it's gonna take our focus and our work. So I do want to just put in all your minds as we're presenting this, we're working on the annual financial report that's due at the end of May. Could there be some slight changes? Yes, between funds, but these overall numbers really aren't going to change much. And what's in the general fund stays there unless we identify something that was miscategorized and belongs in one of the funds, but this should be where we end up. So just to look at a couple of more things on this financial report, probably spend a little bit more time on this one than some of the others. I wanted to just point out maybe a little bit where that excess came from by looking at the revenue side. So this is, of course, all throughout the rest of the year, we're estimating what the actual is going to be. This one, we know what the, it's not an estimate, it's actually what we received. And as we look at the different revenue types for the general fund, sometimes I think people think that property taxes are our primary source. They're really not the primary source, as you can see there. But the variance is slightly under, and that's just about what we want to see. We can't over collect on that, but you don't want to be so far under that it's throwing things off. So I was pleased with where that is. It's a little bit of a slim margin, but it's under, and that's fine. I'd mentioned we knew B&O tax that we'd overestimated that. It's under about where we thought, so that's looking good. Again, things that are in the parentheses or the brackets are unfavorable. In other words, we didn't hit budget on those, but you'll notice a couple of lines are over. One of those is charges for goods and services, and this category can be a little bit evasive because it's not very well defined, frankly. But and it's a large category. We budgeted over 3.1 million, but it has some large ticket items in it. It's the reimbursements from the Metropolitan Park District, so that alone represents a big chunk of that. That came in about what was budgeted. Some other things in this are recreation fees, and they were over budget by $21,000. We had plan review fees in engineering that were not budgeted, and we received $84,000. And then we also have the interfund transfers in there, and so that represents some of it. So I was gonna look on, sorry, God, I'm scrolling for myself here. On page 3, then on the expenditure side of this, you'll notice that we have it by each department. And if you look down, you'll see where some of the departments are pretty well underspent. We talked about the detention contract, that's under budget where we thought it would be. Among those others that have the underspending, it's largely due to open positions, I would say. You know, police, certainly that's a big part there. Public Works had the some open positions, most notably probably the city engineer. We made some reductions, as Mark mentioned, so that created some savings in some areas. So that is another place to just kind of really get a feel for what overall impact and effect the fiscal year had. We had mentioned, and I think there's a note on the financial report, that the amount we pay for our fire and EMS, we had under budgeted, and so that's why that was over slightly. But this page represents a pretty, I think, again, effect of where, we don't have some filled positions, and so that creates pretty significant savings. I don't believe, we're not, well, I can tell you, I know we won't have the savings in detention and corrections contract that we had last year in this fiscal year, because we have it budgeted more closely to what we're going to spend. It's difficult to control those open positions, though. We still have some of those, right? And police and our city engineer, staff are working hard to fill those, but right now we still have some open positions. On page 4, then, we have the year-to-date totals. So this, again, just to kind of end up the general fund is where we ended the year. I find that it's a helpful comparison tool for our revenue and expense lines, just to be able to kind of look at the top also of the last couple of years and where we ended up. With this fiscal year, you can see where, some of the revenue lines grow a bit, but not substantially. I think it goes to show, we talk a lot about sales tax, kind of where it's been over the last couple of years, the amount of increase, and then again, down in our expenditures on the general fund. On page 7, let me take you to that, because I think this is an important page for council to see. This represents the ending fund balance on all of our funds. So to take the focus off just the general fund alone, this is a page where I think I would draw your attention to that 2023 fund balance. Obviously, one of the important things we want to see is that that is in a positive position. Those balances, I would remind you, include the reservation. So anything that we have by policy, the 20% that's required in the general water sewer funds, that's included in that amount. The dollar change, I mean, that's depends on kind of what we did with work in the year. That's not in this case favorable or unfavorable. It's simply the change in fund balance between this year and last year. But at the bottom line, I guess I didn't get that on there very well, did I? We're sitting at just slightly over where we were a year ago. So at 23 million, at the end of 22, we were at 22.5 million. Again, if we have a lot of capital projects going on, that could draw that down a bit more. So, it's not a bad thing. It's just really the highlight, I think, where we want to see those fund balances and that they're in positive positions. And then it depends a bit on the fund and its purpose and what's happening with it. But we monitor that closely, and I bring it to your attention, so we're paying attention to it. And again, as we work on the annual financial report, there might be some changes between those if something needs to go from the general fund to a capital fund or something. But the bottom line at 23 million, $11,493 should not change. And then on the last part of the report, we have the fund, really a summary of expenditures and revenues kind of rolled up, and it's kind of an easy way to look at everything. It shows every fund that the city has. Certainly some of those can be a little bit elusive. We don't talk about them a lot, in particular, things like the firefighters pension fund, where we're holding money that we pay for retired firefighters and law enforcement. Those are part of the annual budget, but we're showing it every month. I don't talk about it much. I seem to focus mostly on the general fund and the proprietary funds, water, sewer, storm, but certainly everything's outlined there. We'll capture it all as the annual financial report is prepared. And again, I think, ending 2023, it was in some ways a difficult year in looking at the budget, making some changes, but I think as we ended the year, it's in a good position and puts us in a place to plan well. I think we planned well for 2024 and can plan well going forward into 2025 and really looking at our revenue streams and our expenditures and how we keep up with everything. So those are all the formal comments I have.
Comments or questions?
I got one. Page 2, revenues. Can you talk a little bit about the 200K shortfall in B&O? Was that over the course of the 12-month period, or was that in a dense period of time?
It was over the 12-month period, one of our larger payers of B&O. We were basing the budget on kind of what the past couple of years had been, and the change of price in their product really dramatically affected how much B&O tax they paid, and so that was the reduction there. On all other fronts of B&O, it came in about normal, so I think that was a little bit of an outlier, if you will. So
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So 20% short on that because of potentially a fluctuating timber market. Got it.
All right. Any other questions? Well, thank you and your staff and city manager for the hard work. This is not the forecast we expected 6-8 months ago. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if you will, I would like to thank Director Givens and his staff, Don Quizme, that puts a lot of time into this as well. This is an effort to be as transparent as possible, provide the public and the council with as much budgetary information as we can. If there's information in here that you would like to see that's not being covered, we'd like to hear that. We'd like to continue providing as much information regarding city's finances as we can. So please provide any feedback that you may have.
When we do the retreat, I think it'd be good to take a preliminary glimpse of what we anticipate revenue to be next year.
Good.
We doubled B&O.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at what ground can we make up related to the staffing shortfalls that we've had.
So specifically revenue projections for 24 and 25 is
Yeah,
what you're looking at.
25's got the assumed, adjustment. Isn't it right? It would take effect by then.
It should be more fully in
Yeah.
effect.
There's some that pay annually, so wouldn't receive those until after the first year in 25.
And it's a fiscal policy to look at, and when we have that discussion as well as annual sweeping vacancy savings to transfer to capital in the respective fund where the vacancies lie. So if it's water fund vacancies that have been carried for a period and there's a savings there at the end of the year, sweep that and put that into the capital.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good policy that the city means.
Yeah.
Trying to bolster the capital.
Yeah, certainly within the utilities, those are kept in the fund balance, if you will, and not necessarily put into reserve unless it's requested through our normal budgetary request and council action at that time. But we can look at a policy that might, I guess, address that without going through the budget process or some other program that would.
But
make it-
specific to salary savings. is
Salary
what you're-
savings.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, understood.
There's a motivation too, to make sure we're filling positions.
Yeah. Yeah.
With that as well. And then, capital building brings revenue.
Yeah.
We want to encourage that. So putting more money in capital would be great.
Anything else? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Our first business item is a resolution for pavement condition index study. Capital Project Manager Aaron Nix has the details for it.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council, thank you for letting me be up here. I appreciate it. In 2023 for 2024, we budgeted, typically most jurisdictions develop what they call a pavement condition index. And basically what it does is it looks the entirety of our pavement sections throughout the city and it assigns it a score. That score is from 0 to 100. The higher the score, the better the shape the roadway is in, the lower the score, the worse it is. So The reason why we do this is, I believe it's a requirement, but it also makes us more competitive with grants, because we've done an engineering analysis of our roadway sections and identified ones that are in poor or in okay shape. The other thing that it does, is it creates a 3 to 5 year work program to help us kind of prioritize where we want to do like crack sealing and those other types of things, preventative maintenance types of things. So we did this about 5 years ago. The intent with this, again, this was budgeted for this year in the amount of $60,000. We reached out to one of our consultants on our consultant roster. They've identified a scope as well as a cost just under 60,000. We suspect once we get going with this, we'll probably have it done in 3 to 4 months. So probably July, August time period. Again, this will help us prioritize asphalt throughout the city, and kind of allow us to rank priorities for us. So that's really the piece of this. Again, granting agencies like this because it means that you are scientifically looking at your stuff to make sure its condition. It also it really sets us up to do our preventative maintenance, such as crack sealing and other things. So I come forward to you. This is just the first reading, and I'll answer any questions you have with regard to the pavement condition index study that we'd like to move forward.
Thank you, Aaron. Donna, anyone have a comment?
No, we don't, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a motion?
We have budget resolution number 1311-0124 on the March 5th, 2024 action agenda for further consideration.
All right, comments or questions?
Sure, I have a question. Can you just kind of in context, so spending the 60,000 to put everything in an index and understand what we need to work.
Sure.
What does 60,000 do for paving a road? Just because I don't think it's much, but
60,
yeah,
in
like-
general.
yeah.
I'll let you add some input. Typically they say to pave a mile of road, it's about $1 million, is what it's going. So 60,000, to me, it's a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but the reality of what it does is it actually provides us this work program where we can utilize our monies the best that we can for the biggest bang for our customers, who are you guys. So I think this is a good exercise to at least prioritize 60,000. To give you some perspective, I think we budgeted 100,000 this year just for crack sealing. And then another 100,000 for overlays. I'm going to be bringing something forward to you. We'll actually show you what those priorities are, but it really does not do a lot. I mean, you're probably talking a mile, just a treatment of that sort for $100,000. It's not. It doesn't go very far.
Perfect. So it's just thinking about spending the 60,000 on identifying and get better grants. It's a much better use of the money than trying to just save it for other uses.
And more efficient use, because the reality is that our guys and gals can do a tremendous job with crack sealing to help extend the life of that roadway. But there are instances, and I'm going to be perfectly candid, such as Olympic Highway, it's destroyed. You cannot, we're going to have to dig that out and rebuild it in order to make it happen. So what we're trying to do with this is to avoid getting to that stage, attack it more when it's a 60% doing the crack sealing, so that it lasts. If we can get 10 more years out of the roadway, we save that much more money as far as putting it back in. So that really is the intent. I agree. I mean, it's 60,000 is significant, but the reality is it's really we're gonna save that prioritization.
It's a little bit of history on this too. We used to have a policy that was not based on data related to paving roads. It was 20 city blocks a year. And it was just kind of, what blocks do you want to pave, council? And we decided we wanted to make decisions based on data and not based on somebody's necessarily kind of thing. So yeah, and then how often are these being done then?
These are typically done every 3 to 5 years. I think we try to extend it out further.
When was the last time you had one done?
17.
Sometime around 17. Yeah, as the way the prior one was put together, when we read through it, it left some gaps in your mind. this is being done by a company that does a lot of these, and the prioritization will be quite a bit better on this particular go around. Then also, because we got the transportation benefit district that could be coming to an end, that funding source, we're gonna know what the backlog of projects are, and we'll know just maintain the payment condition index for the next 5 years. Is it $1 million? Is it $1.5 million a year that I need to be putting out there? So we'll be giving you really good numbers to just maintain what we have, so we don't keep sliding down the slippery slope.
Councilmember, Gilmore, exactly, that's it. I mean, what it does is it prioritizes and extends the life of your stuff, so that, you're not trying to spend as much money on it, because it is super expensive.
Great. We have a motion and a second to forward resolution number 1313-0124 to the action agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Public Works Director Jay Harris has information for us about purchasing a vehicle for the Stormwater Department.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council, Jay Harris, your Public Works Director. We have a 2009 Ford Escape that was an engineering vehicle that's been repurposed for our stormwater technician that we put on a year and a half, 2 years ago now, the position. And that Escape is at end of life, literally. It makes it around town barely. Anyways, the plan is to use the stormwater budget to buy this person a car. That it's going to be a Ford Maverick pickup, and to go around town. He does a lot of inspections of commercial facilities, that sort of thing. He every 6 years, is it, Aaron? He has to do all the commercial sites in the city. So he's on year and a half of that right now. So he's out and around doing a lot of different things. And our stormwater inspector is actually assisting us with construction inspection too on the side for a new development. So it's an expenditure that's well worth it. We had $50,000 as budgeted for the replacement. It's coming in about $35,000, which is another good thing.
Right. Donna, anyone have public comment?
No, Mr. Mayor.
And do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would place resolution number 1315-0124 on the council March 5th, 2024 action agenda for the consideration.
Comments or questions? All right. We have a motion and a second to place resolution number 1315-0124 on the council March 5th, 2024 action agenda for the consideration. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Senior Planner Jason Dose has information for us about approval of the Meadows Edge final plat.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As you indicated, I'm bringing before you tonight a final plat for what we're referring to as Meadows Edge. It's a 36 lot residential subdivision that began life in our urban growth area, went through the Mason County process, obtained approval last year, was annexed into the city last year as well. This process is really, for lack of a better term, administrative. We're kind of just making sure, did they do what they said they were going to do? Does it meet the code? And does it meet state law? And the answer to all these questions, frankly, is yes. What we're asking of the council is to pass a motion at their next meeting that would allow the mayor to sign on behalf of the city. On the face of the final plat map, the plat map itself has signatures from departments at the county, health department, assessor, treasurer. We also have several of our directors signing, namely community development and the public works director. The applicant's already bonded as allowed and required by state law and our code. Really don't see any red flags with the project.
Thank you, Jason. Donna, does anyone sign up public comment?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a motion?
I move to place the final plat for the Meadows Edge subdivision on the action agenda for the March 5th, 2024 council meeting for further consideration.
Second,
Thank you. Comments or questions?
this neighborhood looks awesome. Honestly, I like the way it's laid out. That's great. keep us surprised. in the process.
Everything I've heard, our staff are quite happy with the public infrastructure that's going into the ground, under the ground. As Director Harris mentioned, we've got multiple staff out there performing inspections, and they're quite pleased with what's going on up there and the speed that's taking place. So one of the impetuses, I guess, of this final plat is the applicant is looking forward to applying for building permits sometime next month. So that's also great news. Yeah.
Yeah, they're expecting, their timeline suggests a full completion date of all the improvements in mid to late April. So and they haven't missed a deadline yet on their schedule, so.
But just so the public knows, this is the one that's on Shelton Springs Road, just right past the, yeah, right past Basil over there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, sweet, awesome. We need them. All right, we have a motion to second to place the final plat for the Meadows Edge subdivision on the action agenda for March 5th, 2024 with the consideration. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, City Manager Mark Ziegler has information for us about garbage rates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Back in 2017, the city of Shelton entered into an agreement with Mason County Garbage to provide solid waste disposal, recycling disposal, yard waste disposal, and really get out of that service as they have been performing for a number of years for our citizens. Within that contract, there's the typical term of the contract, which is 20 years. There's indemnification clauses and everything you see. But also within that contract are allowable rates. So there's kind of three tiers or three, I guess, subtopics of rates. First and foremost is the essentially the inflationary rate, or the rate based on the consumer price index. That has for the first 10 years a floor of 2.5% and then a ceiling of 4.5%. This is allowable within the contract. Mason County Garbage can institute that rate increase without approval from the city council or the city. This year, what was indicated to me by Mason County Garbage, the CPI was actually 4.8%. So their ceiling is 4.5, a bit lower than that 4.8. Tipping fees, and the passing of tipping fees is also allowed within the contract. So Mason County, the governmental entity, charges a tipping fee to dump garbage at the transfer station at Hills Hill. So those rates are passed on to the customer for Mason County Garbage. Again, for the contract, it's not required to come back to council for approval. The third subtopic is the unforeseen costs, if you will, and I'm going to read this. The contractor may apply to the city for rate adjustments to reflect unforeseen costs arising during the term of the agreement, including fuel increases, tax charges, governmental fees and surcharges, and changes in laws, rules, and regulations. So in consulting with the city attorney, the term may apply to the city for the rate adjustments was the critical language there. So that's why we're asking Mason County Garbage to attend here tonight. I will turn it over to Site Manager Chad White with Mason County Garbage to further explain what the request is in front of you tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. My name is Chad White. I'm the Site Manager at Mason County Garbage and Recycling. And to talk about this, in 2023, Washington State enacted the Climate Commitment Act, which essentially is being talked as a carbon fee. A law introduced basically a program that was aimed at reducing gas emissions. This initiative imposes a emissions fee reflected as a charge at the pump. Mason County Garbage is notably affected by this development, and to mitigate the impact of the new law, we're proposing it's a pass-through charge. This charge is determined by the additional cost of fuel-related products and corresponding per gallon use to service our customers in the city of Shelton. Flat fee is spread equally across our customers, and the pass-through will be adjusted annually based on the previous year's data. And so, based on last year we soaked it up, just trying to kind of get a read on how this is, going to play out, how the fees are going to go fluctuate. They fluctuate almost daily. So it's hard to do fluctuate the charge like that. So And I think last year they fluctuated anywhere from 45 to 75 cents. I don't know how long, it stayed at each rate, but essentially it would be, the residential customers would see about a 20 cents per month, charge. And then the, commercial would be $1.63. Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. Is there any questions or?
Anyone sign up for
sorry.
a comment, Donna?
No, there isn't, Mr. Mayor.
All right, do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, we play resolution number 1318-0224, much for the council agenda for consideration.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, who was the second on that? Sharon, thank you.
Comments or questions? I have a question. So we have a citizen initiative to repeal carbon, the CCA, I believe it is. So if that were to happen, would we be back here lowering those?
Yeah, if it did go away, yeah. Because this will be, like I said, this will be kind of an annual based deal. And so it'd be based on the previous year. And if it gets repealed, yeah, for sure.
Mr. Mayor, for clarification, the draft resolution has a date through December 31st, 2024. That certainly can be discussed by council, edited, altered, but I threw in kind of a term within the resolution, so it could, could come back for on an annual basis if you prefer.
Well,
Yeah, so worst case scenario, what happens if we don't?
I guess we're chewing up the fee. I don't know. Like I said, last year, we soaked it up just trying to get a base on what this was gonna be, what it was gonna look like. I don't know. If you don't, you don't. Like I said, this is just a complete pass-through fee. It's not anything that we're gonna make anything off it. It's a total pass-through. So we're just looking to soak up the cost of, since our industry our deal is based on driving around, and we go through a lot of gallons of fuel every day. So it's a total pass-through. So it's not anything that's looking to generate more revenue for us. So we're just asking, to do this. So.
Anything else? All right, we have a motion, a second. Sorry?
So this other two fees that you are going to implement are gonna be a part of this 20% or 20 cents more? Or is this more on top of what you're already at?
This is another fee on top of the normal CPI.
So we're approving one fee and you're hitting us with three.
What's the?
So the 4.8, you said it was?
There's increases to the rates per the contract, so
Yes,
those rates are broken
gonna
out.
go up Anyway,
Exactly.
You're asking us to add an additional rate increase on top of what you're already imposed.
The inflationary cost, if you will, Chad, the inflationary cost of 4.5% for the contract, and then the tipping fees that are being proposed or adopted by Mesa County for actually dumping the garbage out at the landfill or at the transfer station that increased by 5% in 2024.
So 5% plus 20 cents?
Yeah.
We're looking at.
Yeah, the 5% is the Mesa County transfer fee, which is us, again, that's another pass-through fee. And then the 4.5% on the contract that's the CPI, that's what we added, and then yes, we're asking for this carbon fee, which is an addition, so we're basically making 3 raises to the ratepayers. Yeah, the 2 of them are every year. This is just,
but at the same time, you want us to hit them with another one on top of that. I know a lot of my neighbors right behind me are struggling pretty hard right now.
I know.
Gas is ridiculous. I'm sure you know it too, you know what I mean? I'm sure there's a lot of issues.
yeah, this isn't
Paying their garbage bill.
a fun topic,
No, that's what I mean. You're talking about raising prices. I don't like the idea of raising prices, especially one after another all on top of each other. Just seems, a bit much, all to hit at once. especially the beginning of the year, you know? Yeah. We all just came through the holiday that we probably expected to do a lot better than we did. Unfortunately, it is what it is. But, you know, to add all these expenses on top at one time, doesn't seem, you know, doesn't seem good to me. You know, implementing it maybe at a later point, you know, come back in 6 months and then, you know, come up with another 20 cents then, but, you know, run right after the other just seems a bit much.
Right. We have a motion and a second to place resolution number 1318-0224 on the March 5th council agenda for further consideration. All in favor, say aye. 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 Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have another one from Mark.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight I bring before you a memorandum of understanding with Mason County for the acceptance of 0.09 funds for economic development purposes. 0.09 funds are available to rural counties through Washington State as part of the sales and use tax distributed to the county, and then off of a economic development list, project list. Those projects are available for funding for economic development purposes. We actually were contacted by Mason County to reach out for these funds and made a request. And the county commission has approved disbursement of $125,000 that would be put towards the headworks upgrades at the satellite wastewater treatment plant. So that's a $3.6 million project that is kicking off as we speak. So this would increase capacity up at the satellite wastewater treatment plant, therefore hopefully increasing economic development and construction within the areas of that treatment plant services.
Thank you. Donna, anyone have public comment?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, move to place resolution number 1319-0224 on the March 5th city council action agenda.
Second.
All right, comments or questions?
It's great. We need this for activity at the port, which is jobs and revenue.
Yeah.
And full steam ahead. Get it done.
Water aside.
Right, we have a motion and a second to place resolution number 1319-0224 on the March 5th council action agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right. Park and Recreation Supervisor Jordan Crumples has information reports about appointment to the Park Advisory Board.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight I bring to you an open position that we're looking to fill for the Parks Advisory Committee. This committee is responsible for including advising you guys on future parks and recreational resources, making recommendations for our parks rules and regulations, and serving as a liaison to the community and assisting in comprehensive planning efforts when we do them. Staff, we did local media outreach for this, and along with just city media sources. We had one interest, Miss Kathy McDowell has submitted a letter of interest for this position. She would be completing an incomplete term, which would end at the end of this 2024 year. And we're just looking for further consideration. Happy to answer any questions.
Jordan, anyone have a public comment, Donna?
No, Mr. Mayor.
And do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to forward the appointment of Kathy McDowell, the Parks and Recreation Citizen Advisory Committee on March 5th, 2024 action agenda for consideration.
Second.
All right, comments or questions? Welcome back, Kathy. Got a letter from Kathy. All right, we have a motion and a second to forward an appointment of Kathy McDowell to the Parks and Recreation Citizen Advisory Committee to the March 5th, 2024 action agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We have another one from Jordan.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight I bring to you selected artwork for the next rotation for our art gallery. The Shelton Arts Commission had a call to artists with a total of 5 artists. The deadline was February 2nd, excuse me. The Arts Commission met on February 6th to jury the submittals. And then tonight I am bringing you those recommendations. They would be placed March 5th through May 31st. The 4 artists that were selected this time were Elizabeth Jacobson with some digital photography, Joanne Dow with oil, Lance Griffith with oil on canvas, and Renee Matter with colored pencil artwork. And tonight we're just looking for approval to get those hung. Happy to answer any questions.
Very nice. Donna, you must have a public comment.
No, sir.
All right, and do we have a motion?
Shelton Area Commission recommendations for faith and in the civic center review.
Comments or questions? Thank you, Jordan. We have motion and second to approve Shelton Arts Commission recommendations for replacement Civic Center rotating art gallery. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next on our action agenda is an ordinance related to general facility charges. Public Works Director Jay Harris has details for.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council, Jay Harris, your Public Works Director, up here again. So at our last meeting, I went over general facilities charges. Those are one-time charges for developments or a developer to connect to the storm, water, or sewer systems. These are for capacity projects down the road. So capacity can be at an existing wastewater treatment plant and a pipeline. It could be facility upgrades that we need to do, like a headworks facility in the future to bring on more capacity. And so they're not ongoing rates. They're one-time development charges. So you basically buy your way into the sewer, water, or storm drainage system. So, so properties that are already developed, and if they're not redeveloping, they don't pay general facilities charges. Last year in the water and sewer rate study, we had the consultant FCS group look at the capacity projects and calculate the water and sewer general facility charge rates. Those are in the master fee schedule. Those have already been adopted by the council. So anyways, there's been no changes since the last presentation, and the majority of the changes here in the municipal code are just to one, recommended by the city attorney, and two, for staff to be able to issue credits for when a development does complete a identified project. We're able to give them credits to that upgrade in the capacity in the system.
Thank you, Jay. Donna, anyone have public comment?
No, Mr. Mayor.
May we have a reading of ordinance number 201-0124?
Ordinance number 2019-0124. An ordinance of the city of Shelton, Washington, amending sections 13.04.220, 14.12.010, and 16.06.040 of the Shelton Municipal Code, and adding a new section 15.28.150 relating to general facilities charges for stormwater, water, sewer, and reclaimed water services.
Thank you, Donna. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, move to adopt ordinance number 2019-0124 as presented.
Sorry. Second.
Thank
Comments
you.
or questions? All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 2019-0124 as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Capital Project Manager Aaron Nix has information for us about construction award for safe routes to school.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council, thank you again. Very excited about this project. I've been talking to you about this project for a couple months here now. This is the Safe Routes to School project that we've been talking about. 2 crossings near Evergreen Elementary, and then a new crossing up by the high school. What's great about this, you guys, is we got 11 people coming in and bidding on this project. What's even better than that is the engineer's cost estimate was $885,133, and our low bid is $669,891, almost 200,000 plus, less than the engineer's estimate, which candidly, I would say it's because of the time of year that that this went out and bid. We did a little bit of research, Barcott construction background. We actually talked to local programs. We also talked to another jurisdiction that utilized them, and they had very, very good things to say about them. This is really their bailiwick. This is where they do these kind of projects a lot. And you can't beat that cost. So what I'm asking the council is to allow the city manager to enter into a contract to award the SRTS project to Barcott Construction LLC, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Aaron. Don, anyone have a public comment?
No, sir.
May we have a reading of resolution number 1296-1023?
Resolution number 1296-1023. A resolution of the Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, authorizing the city manager to approve a public works contract with Barcott Construction LLC in order to construct the Safe Routes to School project.
Thank you, Donna. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 1296-1023 as presented.
Second. All right, comments or questions?
We're doing about one package of safety projects a year right now, right? Like traffic.
The
safety,
last-
ped safety.
This will be a third year, is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and there's another round.
Yeah,
Which we're already talking about.
Yeah.
To apply for. Great. And then also understand we got a TIB grant. That's gonna be safety improvements as well as asphalt too. So we got some other projects happening too. And we also, believe it or not, we got more grant money to do it on other couple of locations. So I'm just trying to, I got currently 12, 13 projects that I'm trying to ease forward. But keep going.
If it's anything like the pedestrian projects we've had in the recent past, this is such a great opportunity to move forward on.
I appreciate that. What's even more beneficial, I think, and Jay deserves credit for this, is all the signs that were out there do not meet current standards. And we basically are replacing all of them with new reflectivity, 200,000 plus under process. So we're happy.
Because the recent history of the safe school has been great to walk and take a walk and be outside. So thank you very much.
Right. We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 1296-1023 as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Community and Economic Development Director Jay Hill has information for us about grant acceptance for the comprehensive planning.
Director Hill is remote tonight, yeah.
I saw him.
Thank you, Mayor and Deputy Mayor, members of council. As I briefed you a couple times before, we applied for a grant. We were awarded non-competitively, but we still had to apply for $125,000 from the Department of Commerce for work on our comprehensive plan update. That work is currently underway, and we will use this grant funding to reimburse eligible activities, including paying for our consultant and some other activities along with that. So very simple tonight. We're looking for approval to sign the contract with Commerce, and the information was provided to you on kind of, their kind of details on how they operate the contract. But other than that, looking for approval on this. And then there's a separate grant that we'll be talking about in the next item. Same thing. So thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Donna, anyone have a public comment?
No, Mr. Mayor.
May we have a reading of resolution number 1313-0124?
Resolution number 1313-0124. A resolution of the Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, authorizing the city manager to accept grant funds in the amount of $125,000 for comprehensive planning.
Thank you, Donna. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 1313-0123 to accept grant funds for the comprehensive plans.
Right. Comments or questions? All right, we have motion and a second to approve resolution number 1313-0124 to accept grant funds for comprehensive planning. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We have another item, Jay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is that second grant acceptance. Shortly after we had scoped out our budget and our work plan for the comprehensive plan, we were notified by Commerce that pursuant to HB 1181, we were given another $150,000 to study the effects of climate change and disaster resilience as required by this new resilience element that's going to be part of mandatory element of comp plans across the state. So fortunately, along with this state mandate came some money to actually do the work instead of just an unfunded mandate and telling us to do some stuff they thought of. So this is $150,000. We've scoped this out. We have not begun exactly all of the work on this yet, but it's basically going to feed a lot into our comprehensive plan and a couple of other plans that we've got going on right now, building strongly off of the multi-jurisdictional multi-hazard mitigation plan that was completed last year by Mason County and partnering agencies, including the city of Shelton. So when we are authorized to sign, which hopefully you will agree with this resolution to authorize the city manager to accept the $150,000 in grant funds, then we will get underway with that with our consultant and roll that into our planning activities. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Donna, anyone send up public comment?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right, and reading resolution number 1314-0124.
Resolution number 1314-0124. A resolution of the Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, authorizing the city manager to accept grant funds in the amount of $150,000 for climate and resilience planning.
Thank you, Donna. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 1314-0124 to accept grant funds for resilience planning.
Second.
Right. Comments or questions? All right, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 1314-0124 to accept grant funds for resilience planning. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Moving on to our administration reports. City manager, do you have a report for us?
Just a couple things tonight, Mr. Mayor. I want to recognize our police department for a couple things. Kickoff of the Citizens Academy last Thursday. Well attended by a broad demographic of our community. Got kind of at least last Thursday focused just on the general police department a little bit and the K-9 program, and this will progress over 8 weeks. So we're really happy that that our public has taken the opportunity to become involved with that program, and for Captain Patton particularly taking the lead on that program. Also want to recognize swore in a new officer today, and if the market's really competitive. These individuals are going to multiple departments and applying across the board for to work at different agencies. There's something to be said about those that want to come to Shelton, want to work here. Part of that is the leadership we have in place and the communication that we have with these individuals. We're bringing them into the office and at the time of application and really getting to know them, letting them know what the department's about, the standards that are set here, and developing a bit of a relationship before they come on board. And those that, you know, it might not fit their personal or professional needs, have opportunities in other organizations, but those that do, we see them applying to the city of Shelton. We're happy to get them into the team and working for this community. So really happy that we're able to do that with Officer Houston tonight and the work being put forth by our administration. The third thing, last thing tonight, we had a bit of February snow. It seems to be common the last few years. Last week wasn't a long event, but it some significant snow and really wet. And I really want to praise our public works crews and all of our staff, our facilities crews, on the work they did to keep roads clear, keep things open, clean up debris. I think that was the biggest result of this winter event, is the heavy snow, some winds, lots of branches, lots of trees down, and lots of cleanup as a result of that. So not as much of the snow as it could have been, but guys were out bright and early in the middle of the night, taking care of our roadways and our infrastructure to make sure everything was functioning properly. So really pleased with their efforts as always. They're always prepared. You saw some media posts that said, well, there might be snow, there might not be snow. We're going to prepare anyway, right? We kind of have a junior crew in certain instances. So this is a good preparation for them to hook up the plows, get ready to go. Well, they got the real practice, right? They just didn't have to hook them up and prepare. They got to go out and perform as well. So it's a good activity that we need to continue practicing and putting into place for our community. So that is all I have tonight. But I'm open to any questions council may have.
All right, how much questions for the manager? All right, at this time, members of the public are invited to make public comment on any topic that's not listed on the agenda. Donna, anyone signed up for public comment?
I don't have anyone signed up for in-person, but let me check with Zoom. We have Colleen Carmichael on Zoom.
Good evening, Mayor Inesco, Deputy Mayor Schmidt, and fellow council members. My name is Colleen Carmichael, and I'm the Executive Director of Quixote Communities. In an article dated October 22nd, the Urban Institute evaluated Denver's Supportive Housing and Social Impact Bond that was issued by the City of Denver in response to policing homelessness. Unsheltered homelessness is on the rise amid systematic and widespread lack of affordable housing, supportive services, and livable wages. As the housing crisis worsens, homelessness has become increasingly visible and, as a result, an increasingly dominant public concern. Many cities have leaned into punitive responses that criminalize homelessness, such as arresting people for sitting or sleeping in certain public places. But this approach is costly and ineffective. It doesn't solve homelessness, it only moves it around to other neighborhoods, jails, emergency rooms, rather than connecting people with the houses and services they deserve. In 2016, Denver focused on people who had 8 or more arrests over 3 consecutive years, with at least 3 of the arrest marks as transient. At the time, the police were spending an estimated 2,789 hours arresting people. In 2018, Denver police spent an additional 3,600 hours on warrants, many of which were for offenses related with experiencing homelessness. Arresting people for these types of offenses doesn't prevent offenses from happening again if the arrest also doesn't come with follow-up services or solutions for the underlying conditions. In response to this negative trend, Denver created the Supportive Housing and Social Impact Bond to provide supportive housing to participants to help them stay housed. Arrests related to homelessness on those participants dropped by more than half. In the 2 years after being in the groups, people were arrested for 52% fewer offenses than those experiencing homelessness that were not in those groups. Denver police stated that they reduced the time spent arresting people for these types of offenses each year by an estimated 1,450 hours. To repeat, the number of hours police spent arresting homelessness reduced from 2,789 hours to 1,450 hours once other services were provided. Investing in supportive housing can stop this cycle by addressing the root causes and create space for police to focus on violent crimes that better serve the needs of the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Council have any new items for discussion?
I'll speak to Larry.
Find them, please.
Good evening. Thanks to be here. In the past, I've thrown out a couple challenges to have the council look at the ordinances and familiarize yourself with the ordinances. Whether you guys have accepted that challenge or not, it's yet to be seen. So I'm going to throw out another challenge. On your way here and when you leave, I want you to drive by Community Lifeline and Brewer Park. Tell me what you see. Don't listen to me. Go see it for yourself. Boots on the ground and see what we see. When I left here last week, we had a fire in Brewer Park. I also took pictures of several other fire locations in Brewer Park. Okay, so it's no secret that I do not want Community Lifeline to get their bed increase. I think it's a negative impact on our city, and I don't believe that we should be doing it. There will be an appeal made. Some of those appeals, the will of the people is ignored. Omission of disclosure of financial beneficiaries, a fiduciary responsibility, omission of input from the Shelton Police Department, Omission of a wider study of a downtown impact, omission of a study the impact of housing valuations. There was statements in there that it will not negatively impact the value of a house next to it. We had a council person that moved out of a house right directly across from Community Lifeline. Why did he move? Ask him, he'll tell you. He's on one of your boards. The lack of accountability and enforcement detailed in the recommendation is it opens up a huge liability to the city. Okay? The will of the people is ignored. Citizens of Shelton and Mason County live in a democracy. There was a 35% turnout, I think, in the last voting. And even though there was only 35%, we had to abide by what was passed, right? What got voted on. If I'm not mistaken, there was a overwhelming response negative to the non-approval of Community Lifeline, and there was only 2 or 3 that approved it. Well, if you remove the 2 or 3 that spoke in behalf or for it, they were the people that put the application front. So we just ignored the business people that actually give you guys the funding that you need. I mean, I don't buy into that. I don't understand it. I don't buy into it. And I don't agree with it. Thank you.
All right, does the council have any new items for discussion?
Yes, sir. Recently this weekend, I got a whole mess of phone calls. I don't know if anybody else did. There was a bit of a uproar on some social media about a complaint that came from our code enforcement with regards to a sign up on Pioneer Hill. It's a campaign sign. That's a 4x8 sign that we've all seen put up there historically on every hill around here for decades, since long before we were here. I know a couple of us have 4x8 signs that we use during campaign season. And according to our policy 20.38-030, the maximum square footage of a sign in the city is 16 square feet for temporary signs. I would like to see or discuss amending that so that we can get it up to 32 square feet so that we can fit the 4x8 signs and that we're not in violation by running for office, because we don't want to have an argument with the governors running or the people running for legislature who decide where the money's going to go and that sort of thing. So, you know, we just need to be mindful that we've all been guilty of this at some point. Well, a lot of us have with the 4x8 signs, and that I think we need to amend that. The sooner the better, because we have campaign season getting ready to come up, and we have a lot of people getting ready to put up signs in our community.
Anybody have any thoughts on that?
What was the complaint? The code enforcement? What was
That the sign does not meet our size requirements according to the city ordinance.
I don't know what sign this is.
The semi-bird sign that's over on the Pioneer Hill.
It's not what, it's the size that matters, not the what.
Yeah, we spent months on this in 2022. What's the driver? Other than complain about them not conforming with the size requirements. Is it on public property or private property?
Private property.
Okay, yeah, it's got to conform with the sign code, right? Yeah. All right. Yeah, we talked through this a couple years ago, so I don't know what the driver is, and definitely not interested in getting into a political discussion about supporting political parties during it.
Enforce one, enforce all.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So both sides, it's gonna be the same thing. We've all put up the same sign.
I'm good with it at 16 square feet. Not interested in making it bigger at this point, so. But yeah, if it wants to come to a study session or something, we can talk about it. Perfectly fine with that. I think it's a good call. You can debate it.
Well, we need 4 of us to agree on that.
Oh,
Do we have consensus to move this to a study session? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 4. So study session would be when?
Well, let's see.
Actually, hold on a second. Hold on a second. So, yes, what are you looking at for schedule?
Yeah, well, obviously the next study session is the 27th. we have some preparation time with staff to get this forward. To amend the code, it takes a public hearing. So that has to be noticed at least 10 days prior to 10 days, right, Don? Thank you. 10 days prior to the public hearing in the newspaper of record. Our newspaper is a weekly, newspaper. So we have to meet the first and third Tuesdays of the month unless it's a special meeting. That gives us a little bit of time. We've got room on the 12th. We also have with any amendment to the development code, which this would be, it takes a 60-day review by the Department of Commerce. So at a minimum, if we're talking, I think the fastest we could get to it with the 10-day notice, if I'm looking ahead, would be the 5th, potentially March 5th. As this is, there's no other meeting. But again, that's not addressing a study session. If we want a study session on the 27th, we could potentially get it on the 19th for the public hearing, and then down to action on the 26th. Excuse me, 2nd.
What month? So you said 60 days.
60-day mandatory review by the Department of Commerce for any development code regulation change.
How much does that cost? I mean, there's a cost of staff time cost to this.
There's
I guess
definitely, yeah.
we're going back around the horn.
Yeah.
On this, and this takes a lot of time to get through all of this and there's a cost to it. And we still haven't had conversations about housing. We still haven't enacted any kind of response plan to that. We still haven't fully discussed public safety and how we're gonna fund public safety. So I guess I'm not really interested in talking about low hanging fruit in ordinance, unless it's like a life or a limb thing, or it's gonna block the development of a project or something like that. We're talking about transient signs, and I really don't want to spend a ton of time on that. So if there's an idea and we can get it through in a quick way, and it makes sense, and it's above board, I'm fine, but I don't really want to waste a lot of time on this.
It looks like we already had consensus to move it to a study session unless somebody revokes.
Well, I'm withdrawing that then.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. So if we want to prioritize housing next and then that, then I'm with you, but
Absolutely.
yeah, all right. I'll negotiate on that, but we got to get housing and public safety up first and get that debated out and planned. Because we don't have a plan. We're still guessing. So let's do it.
So we're moving to a study session on the 22nd.
So after we do one on housing and finish up on public safety.
I'm not sure that works that way, Joe. We got 4 people right here that already want to move that to the study session.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine.
These 4 already decided to move it, so there's already consensus to do this, so. Am I correct, city manager?
We've been back and forth. Yeah, I think I heard about a study session. I didn't get a date, specific date. So we have some work to do to get to the 27th. I guess that's considering the only thing that would be changed is the size of a temporary sign, the maximum size of temporary sign. Now, I want to caution council, when you open up these codes, it tends to get a little bit of creep, right? So then we start talking about the numbers of temporary signs or a permanent sign. This sign code, I think at least 4 of you were here in 2022 that were involved in that process. I was involved in the staff, and it took us the better part of 6 to 8 months to put this together, and even to bring to council because of the implications with sign code. We worked with the Government Affairs Committee at the Chamber. We worked with other partners within the community. You remember it took different iterations as well. So
6 to 8 months.
a lot. Yeah, I hate to say probably close to 100 hours, with attorney and everybody else. For some background, in 2015, there's a Supreme Court decision that said you cannot regulate signs based on content. So it's placement, it's materials, it's size, it might be something like that. Our code at that point hadn't been updated, to account for Reed versus Township, if I forget, it was back east. But at that point, it wasn't updated. So we had a lot of work to do to update the sign code, refine it a little bit, make it a little easier to navigate at the same time. And then working with our partners, the Chamber of Commerce and other individuals that had the most interest.
Honestly, how much time does it take Will to have to go on the app, look that up, drive all the way out there, look at the sign, get a tape measure out? I mean, how many wasted man hours do we have on that? And if we're doing it with all the rest,
I agree.
signs all over town, we waste a lot of time doing it that way too.
Yeah, we got like derelict properties. Yeah, that's a huge issue.
A whole bunch of them.
But our code enforcement is still complaint based, correct?
Absolutely.
Right?
Correct.
When the public files a
Yeah.
complaint, because this was a public complaint, correct?
It was a public complaint.
Yeah, so we have to respond to that.
And it's consistent with some complaints about some other signs and enforcement at the same time, yes.
Is it sign removed or is it still there? I haven't been bothered.
It's still there.
So the enforcement action was a courtesy notice. So if we receive a complaint, we do the investigation, we send a courtesy notice to the property owner, notifying them. A lot of times, the property owner isn't aware that it's a violation of the code, so we don't go through strict enforcement at that time. We like to notify the property owner of the code violation, give them the opportunity for voluntary compliance. If they don't meet the statutory requirement of that voluntary compliance, then we go into progressive enforcement at that point, and then they get an official notice of violation with more specific criteria to remove the violation, or we can go into a citation at that point.
I mean, I'm okay with moving this to a study session. I don't, 27 is sufficient for staff. I think we're pushing these guys. We move it to the next study session after that.
Longer we put this up, the people are going.
I mean, you want our staff working on this in the next 7 days. 7 days for the net to change. They gotta write ordinances, they gotta go to the attorney, city attorney. City attorney has to go through it.
Like I said, a quick draft of changing 2 numbers to 2 more numbers. Yep, that's quick. What else are we diving into at this point? Are we being able to provide the council the full message? And is there going to be anything else that gets vetted out through that process? That's what we need to consider.
Is this a burden on you for 7 days? That's what I'm asking. I don't want to put burden on the staff.
Hold on a second.
7 days instead of 14 days.
One complaint? We're gonna change the code because of one complaint?
It's been 2 recently I know of. I can dig into it a little more. There was one that was addressed already. It was voluntary, complied with. The individuals removed the signs. This is the second one, I think, within the last, couple weeks.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see more on the complaint when we have the study session. Like, let's bring that out and let's read it. And let's figure this out, because if we're just responding to a single complaint for a single purpose during election season, I don't like the optics on this one bit from an ethical perspective. So if there's something more citywide that's more general to go at this, then I'm with you, but
Other
having a hard time.
Asked me about.
That's fine. Yeah, bring it to the study session.
Okay.
Yeah, bring it and we'll debate it out.
Yep.
So 27th or further out.
I don't really care at this point.
It's a study session to talk about this.
Yeah,
Do we want to change it?
but what was scheduled? Or did we have?
So on the study session, we have a presentation on emergency management and then the 2024 work plan.
And this will just be a message to the end.
We can add it to that if the council so desires. Again, if it expands into a broader conversation, it might kick this down the road a little further if we don't have some discussion in the meantime, and it's just the 32 square foot maximum. If that's all that's being considered, it could be, a moderate conversation. If it starts expanding into that code anymore, it certainly could extend, and we have more time to go through different iterations of drafting the code and getting it reviewed.
What's the time frame on temporary sign?
How long can it be up?
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Special events are, man, I've been read it 5 days after the event. I think is it 90 days for temporary signs? Political signs, we reference washed out specifications, which I believe is 10 days after the election. And then if the candidate moves on to the general from the primary, it can stay up until 10 days after that election.
So I have follow. George, are we talking just four by eight political signs? Are we talking changing the four by eight code for all signs, so everybody can have four by eight signs?
whole reason it's looking about is the 2015, they came up with a Supreme Court ruling that you can't you can't make rulings on content. That we're only allowed to make rules on size and material and that sort of thing. So that's why this all came to be in the beginning. Now, we've come to this point where someone's actually made a complaint on something that we created long ago. And now it's like, I said one complaint actually to the city, but number of phone calls to me, messages. I'm downtown, so people like to come down there and tell me what they think of what someone said on social media more often than not. In many different forms. So that's just.
Well, my question was, are we looking at changing four by eights all over for all signs?
Yeah.
Because
For temporary signs.
not just election signs.
It would have to apply to all temporary signs.
Because I thought that I looked at Lacey or somewhere today or Tumwater that had election season sign ordinance.
Again, good luck getting that done on the 27th. Right, then when they were exploring different cities, seeing what kind of options are brought back to you. I mean, this would go for a garage sale sign if we want to get it to the 27th, right? We're talking about the maximum size for a temporary sign that would apply to a garage sale sign or anything else.
Can't they just permit it? For permit, 4 foot by 8 foot big. You gotta build stuff on a 2x4 to put that up. Get a permit for it. I mean, it's not a problem, right?
That sign, I would have to look at that more closely.
Not this after other cities, so, you know, definitely looked at that. We definitely looked at, the challenge with the litter and everything else that comes with the signs that don't get picked up. We got a lot of them around and Public Works picks them up, we throw them away. We deal with that a lot. As long as we can mitigate all that. Talk about that, but that was all stuff that we went through when this was opened up before.
Yeah, we'd have to look at the zoning district.
Yeah.
For such a sign, I'd have to look at that a little more closely. Talk to Director Hill a little bit and vet out, make sure we're not missing anything throughout that code. Yeah, to see if it would be allowed outright under a permitted process.
Oh, again, this is with the study session, so we will talk about this on the 27th. I don't have any more new items for discussion. Nope. Our next meeting is Tuesday, March 5th, 2024 at 6 p.m. We also have today's session on February 27th at 6 p.m. This meeting is adjourned at 7:32 p.m.